1967-68. You are 14 and have just finished second year at Newcastle Girls High, then the second top school in New South Wales after Sydney Girls High. You and your family spend lots of time with extended family, your mum's family, your dad's sister. They all come over often for sing-alongs around the piano, where your dad plays everyone's favourites. You go to the beach a lot. Your Christmases are absolutely magical. And even though your family don't have much money, your parents save for an annual family holiday on the Gold Coast every year, which is fantastic. You love the Beatles, the Easy Beats, the Trogs and the Beach Boys. Your favourite TV show is The Man from U.N.C.L.E. You have lots of friends. You are smart and funny. Joe, value your sense of humour always. And you don't think so now, but you are also good looking. Please believe me when I tell you this, young Joe, you will never be this thin again. Enjoy it. That's me and my little brother and my cousins. Nobbies. And yet you know there is an inner feeling that if people got to know the real you, they wouldn't like that person. There is somehow an evil Joe lurking deep down. There is also an underlying feeling of fear, which is so ever-present you will not recognise it for many years. You don't realise it yet, but your mother has mental health issues, and these have had a huge impact on you. I'm not sure if people used the term mental health issues in 1968. I remember we cruelly used the term mental to describe behaviour which was not the norm, but I think people who had emotional problems were said to suffer from nerves. The eldest of 5, your mum Jackie was brought up as a princess, her father's favourite. Her working class Welsh family sacrificed much in order for Jack to go to Teachers College in Sydney. She had only been teaching for a short time when she married her sweetheart Joe Wickham, your namesake, in 1949, and there the fairy tale shattered for her. The dream of domestic bliss did not match the reality of life in suburban Maryville. In those days, only very poor women continued in the paid workforce after marriage. Jackie automatically lost her job with the New South Wales Department of Education, and by the time you came along in 1953, Jackie had 3 children. They didn't have a car or a phone, money was tight, and taking care of a house and 3 kids was hard, often physical work. Then when you were 5 weeks old and your mum was only 24, tragedy struck, and your eldest brother Bobby, 3, first grandchild on both sides of the family, died suddenly of pneumonia. Your dad and his dad, Grandad Wick, drove Bobby up to the Mater when he became ill. When they went back to see how he was dead. There was no such thing as grief counselling those days. Jackie and Joe were told to just get on with it. You and Gary were not allowed to look at the photo albums of Bobby, and his name was rarely mentioned. Another dear little baby came along in 1960, Pete, when you were 6. Like most of us, Jackie was a weird mixture of things, both a wonderful and a terrible mother. You grew up with lots of fun and laughter, surrounded by extended family. There were wonderful toys, games, books and holidays, and Mum could be the best mother in the world. And yet she was also this terrifying witch who seemed to blame you personally for her unhappiness. And she had lots of unhappiness. Resilience was not her strong suit. Actually, probably the main person Jackie blamed for most of her dissatisfaction was your dad, Joe. One of the saddest parts of your childhood is the fact that, because she was such a powerful force, you believed your mum when she told you that your dad was not really a good husband and father. For example, she would often tell you that he was never at home. But as an adult, you will realise that in fact your dad was actually at home almost all of the time when he wasn't at work. He adored the role of family man and he loved your mum very much. As a fitter and turner, Dad could fix and build anything. As you know, he built our trailer shed, clothesline, TV, aerial fence, etc, etc. He taught all of us kids to swim and will later teach you all to drive. He was also the parent who took us all to the dentist. Joe, you will eventually become very close to your lovely dad, but maybe you could make more of an effort now. When you go home from school every day and Dad asks what you learned, please don't give your usual answer of nothing. I said that to my dad every year for 13 years. Every day, I mean. He's trying hard to make a connection with you. How hard would it be to stop and tell him some of the stuff you have done at school that day? As far as your mum's terrible temper is concerned, it is important for me to remember that parenting styles were different back then than they are now. It was considered normal then to smack your children when they weren't doing the right thing. It was also a big deal to make sure your children didn't get too big for their boots, as if it was seen as a parent's duty to not allow children to become too swell-headed. But Joe, it was not normal for a mother to take these things to the extent that your mother did, such as hitting you on what seemed like a daily basis, smacking you on the legs with the comb when she was doing your hair, taking off her thong in Coles in town to hit you across the head. But worse was the verbal abuse, mainly insults about your laziness and selfishness, all of which as a child you believed. By the time this photo was taken, Jackie had much improved. She is a lot less angry than she was a few years back, isn't she? Although she will continue to be pretty selfish and controlling. Looking back now, I believe the reason for the drop of anger levels at this time was that Mum went back to casual teaching when Pete started school in 1965. Although I'm sure Dad would never have been controlling with the family income, I remember Mum having housekeeping money. And I think having her own disposable income and having the recognition and stimulation of a paid job helped her enormously. Our family got such luxuries as a new lounge suite, and Mum got her own car, a blue Morris Minor, which she will share with you and Gary when you learn to drive. Maybe Mum also had some sort of counselling at that time, I'm not sure. However, the scars from the abuse will be with you for a long time. You will leave home at 19 and never move back in. The distance from your mum allows you to heal many of the scars as you grow up. Having said that, you and your mum will always be always have a very, very close relationship. She will really come into her own as a wonderful, supporting grandmother. You will begin therapy at the age of 35 and you will learn to reconcile the awful, angry mother and the wonderful, caring one. You will eventually become a psychologist yourself, and you will particularly enjoy supporting young people whose parents have mental health problems, and also supporting parents who allow their children to do whatever they want, as your granddad did with Jackie. So what messages do I want to give you? I don't see it as my role to tell you of all the fantastic things that will happen to you. That would spoil the surprise. My main message is that you are enough. You are already wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Your determination and self-discipline mean that you will take life by the horns and have a ball. You will see the world. Heaps of your dreams will come true and more. As a parent, yes, that dream comes true and is better than you can ever imagine. You will mostly manage to channel the best parts of your mum and drop the bad parts. You will help so many people. You will be an excellent teacher, a great counsellor and a wonderful human being. Joe, you might find it helpful to go and see a counsellor now. I know there is one at your school. Just one more thing. I know I said it was for me to change the story with his intervention, but in 1975, you and your partner would look at buying a house in Ridge Street, Merriweather for $15,000. Joe, buying this house and hanging on to it would be a really good idea.